Okay, welcome to BackChat powered by Paywise. We're crossing all the way to beautiful sunny Melbourne. I can only imagine it's that, being a Melbourne boy myself. Geelong boy, I know what the weather gets like over there. We cross to Michael Zerafa. Look, I always feel uncomfortable calling you by your boxing and your fighting names, but Pretty Boy Zerafa, we can get into that a little bit. But, mate, great to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me, brother. I appreciate it.
Look, we start every episode like this, mate, so I know you can box, right? You knock people out. You got it done in points victories. You've beaten some of the best fighters around the world. We know you can box. But I want to start with your greatest sporting achievement, not in the ring, thanks to TABtouch this year. We interview lots of sports people about their brilliant talents in their selected sports. But what can you do other than boxing, mate? I want to know what sort of sports you've tried your trade in. Can you run? Can you play tennis? Are you a ping pong player? Are you a chess player? What do you got for
well,
me?
I love a good game of chess. I love a good game of chess, but I was actually a footballer. I was doing both sports at the time, but as an amateur, I was, I had the flexibility of still being a fighter and playing local footy. But I know I definitely can't play basketball. That's one sport I definitely can't do. I just don't get it, don't understand it, don't really like it. But I gave footy a crack. I was just sure. I was always fit. And I love running around, but I just found my passion at a young age with boxing, and I knew that's what I really wanted to do. So I just stuck at that, and now we're here.
What position did you play in footy? What were you?
I was a forward pocket. I always liked to be in the forward line. I hated playing the back line. I wanted to be the guy that kicked all the goals and saved the day. But I wasn't afraid to get on the ball and smash it out.
Yeah, that's good, mate. Kick any big bags? Any goals?
I was one of those players that one game I'd kick 3 or 4, and the next game wouldn't get a touch. I was very inconsistent, but like when I had a good game, I was on fire, 100%.
Yeah, love it. All right, so we're gonna have a bit of a chat about your journey, mate, into boxing. I like starting at the beginning with these sorts of things, and I think boxing in particular, or definitely some of the combat sports, I always find it interesting how you kind of got started in the sport. So, before that, like, what's life like growing up for you? What's your childhood and I guess journey into boxing? How does it start?
I was pretty tough growing up, man. I didn't come from a rich family or anything like that. We just, my dad worked at the airport. My mum was a nurse. So we were just, doing what we did just to survive, I guess, nothing fancy. But I started watching boxing around 7, 8 years old. And, knowing I could have that one fight and change my family, friends' lives and myself, my family to be his life, that motivated me, to try to be somebody. And there was no one in my family that, kind of stood out. So for me, that was motivating. I wanted to kind of put the Zerafa name on the map, So I walked into a local boxing gym. It was actually a youth center, back then. And we didn't even have a ring. It was 4 chairs that outlined the square, And as soon as I put my first pair of gloves on, I knew, I had no idea what I was doing. I knew this is what I wanted to do, just the discipline and the dedication and just everything that was involved in the sport. I absolutely loved it, And again, I had no idea what I was doing, but I was, dedicated to learn.
Who's coaching you early days? Is it a family thing? You signing up to a gym, you've got a good community there from an early age. How does it go from a coaching point of view?
So it was called a youth center. There was the Craigieburn Youth Center. And they had programs. It was like reading and writing at 4 o'clock. 5 o'clock was boxing and fitness. 6 o'clock was, something else. But it would only be an hour, and I'd go down there, and it was structurally terrible. But I knew that this is what, it takes. And, like I said, I was just so dedicated. Every time I was there, I switched on for that hour and gave it my absolute all. And it became like an addiction, I was like, how can I get better? So I'd go earlier to, a footy oval, and I'd do some laps, and then I'd go to the boxing gym or the youth center, then do what I got to do there. Then I'd be back, trying to do something else. I was always trying to grow and learn and be the best I can. And to this day, I'm still like that.
Yeah. So I'm just sort of thinking back to, me coming up as a sports person, early days. Remember a few moments? Like, do you have any moments where you kind of think back and you're like, I really knew this is what I wanted to do, like, as a junior, or maybe hard times even, where you sort of think, like, this is where I'm meant to be?
Yeah, well, I think it was my first or second spar. I was only about 11 years old, I think I was, when I started sparring. And I remember getting my head absolutely bashed by a guy that was a little bit older than me, and, had a bit of a chip on his shoulder. And yeah, we were sparring and he bashed the hell out of me. And I said to myself, this is going to be the last day that, I'm going to be hit like that. And I remember it was about 2 weeks we were meant to spar again. He said, the trainer goes to us at the time, we'll next week we'll start. And then something happens. So he goes, the following week. And then I remember saying to myself, like, I prepped for this whole 14 days. I was going home and I was training. I was psyching myself up. And I came back to that sparring session like I was fighting Floyd Mayweather. And I tried to just tee off on him and got the better of him, And for me, that was like, that feeling for me was like I had won a world title, because this was like a bit of a bully, who was going around and bashing everyone. And, because it was kind of like a legal thing where he could go around and bully people and bash people, he was getting away with it. So I had to kind of put the foot down and say, this is it for me and fire up. And for me, that was a real turning point where I was like, you know what, like I've got it, I've got that, flip the switch, it's go time, discipline.
Yeah, and I guess just thinking about that and now what you're doing now, and I'm assuming that a world title is still very much your aim and your goal. But what was a 14-day prep time for you now? I don't know what it looks like for you to be fighting some of your big fights now. I'm assuming it's longer than a 14-day run time, but I guess you realised in a small fashion that you could prepare for something as well and actually lock in and go, here's my goal. This is what I'm going to do.
Yeah, 100%. And every fight is different. I mean, I'm doing 12. Well, I'm never, switching off. I'm always in fight camp. There's times where you push harder than other times, but I'm training 2-3 times a day, 6-7 days a week. And I do that for, 12-week camp. And then, depending on who you're fighting and the preparation obviously changes, whether it's a southpaw or a tall opponent, a shorter opponent, a brawler, a boxer, game plans get set up. But yeah, like nothing really changes. You just got to switch on and do what's involved and whatever the trainer says. Some days you don't feel like it, but you just rock up. And then when you're here complaining, you're wrapping up, getting ready to punch on for 3 hours, whether that be sparring, bag work, road work, or, skills and drills, strength and conditioning. Boxing is one of those sports that has, all the sports in one. You got to run, you got to swim, you got to do all that stuff. So, as you're getting older now, well, I'm 33 now, I just feel like, my man skin's in there now and my strength, and I feel like I've matured as a fighter.
Yeah, I spoke to you we had lunch together at an event a few months ago, and I was speaking to you about this at the time. That I look at boxing and, as an outsider, I don't claim to be an expert whatsoever, but I do sort of see all the divisions and the titles and the competitions. It's not like I guess a soccer or an AFL or a cricket where it's very defined. So even as a junior and as you start to have success, is that a complicating factor, or do you just kind of fight the fights that you're given or that you're going for? I guess just like there'll be a lot of people listening to this that aren't, in the boxing community all the time, that sometimes it's not clear to me who you're fighting and why you're fighting and what you're going to win if you do it. Does that make sense what I'm asking?
Yeah, 100%. And a lot of fighters have no idea. A lot of trainers have no idea. As a promoter's, perspective, they just want to kind of put on a good show to get the money out of it. But for me, every fight needs to make sense. Whether I'm, top 10 in the world, or I'm currently top 10 in the world now. So I think I'm sitting at number 8, give me number 7, because that's a moving forward, elevating fight. There's no point of fighting just for the sake of fighting, So whether it's a belt, whether it's a financial benefit, whether it's a ranking moving forward, for me as a fighter, and the guys that are up there as well, it needs to be a moving forward fight. There's a lot of guys that have no idea, and they're like, oh, would you fight this guy? And just for the sake of an ego, I'll bash him, and they just jump in the fight for no reason. And that's where careers are shortened. I'm 33. I've nearly had 40 professional fights, fought 11 world champions, been all around the world, and I still feel like the best is yet to come. I feel grouse because I've taken the right fights. There was a time in my career where it was sort of veering just because my team at the time kind of lost what they were doing. And then, back to the drawing board, I had to reassess and find somebody else.
So I look at other sports as well, and so my sport, AFL, the premiership, like that's the goal. It's very defined. It's like that's what I want to do, and then you put everything into it. What's that for you? Like what's the peak? What's the pinnacle?
The world title. There's only one world. There's 4 sanctioning bodies, and they're exactly the same. There's the IBF, WBO, WBA, and WBC. They all mean the exact same thing. So there's 4 world titles in 4 different sanctioning bodies. And the goal is to win one of those. And obviously there's a ranking system like an AFL, I guess. You top 10, and then you got belts in between that kind of set you up for those, like a mandatory position, which means winning that fight and getting the mandatory position, or an interim world title, or one of these, a little bit smaller than a world title belts, kind of sets you up for that world title. And like last year when I fought Lara, so I became the mandatory to Lara, which means I was world number one, and Lara couldn't pick or choose. He had to fight me because I secured my spot there. It was unfortunate. Obviously, Lara fighting the best in the world, he beat me. But yeah, that's the goal. To try to get one of these titles that elevate you. I currently hold the WBO Intercontinental, which puts me top 10 in the world, and it's leverage. Every time I fight, I defend it. And every time I defend it, I move forward closer to number one. And when you get to the number one, you fight the world champion.
I mean, what's not different between sports is winning and losing. So keen to sort of hear your mindset and how you feel about both of those. Let's start on losing, because I like talking about challenges. What's the mindset like in an individual sport, which is what you're in, when you do lose? You have that fight against Lara and you get done, and whatever the reason is, whether it be luck, training, talent, skill, whatever, but you lose. What's it like at the time, and then how do you shift it quickly into getting on with it?
Good question. Losing in boxing, it's different to every other sport. If you can lose it, and I felt like if Carlton loses next week, they're back there again. They've got the same support crew, they got everything. It's you could lose 5 in a row and still be in the game, I guess. But with boxing, you have 1 or 2 losses and you're right at the bottom again, rebuilding. And this is what's tough. You can win a fight and be overnight success, and then you can fight the next fight and be straight back to where you started in the rebuilding process. And it's a long way down, So for me, when I lost against Lara, it was, I was world number one, and I worked my absolute ass off to get there. And I lost the preparation. I prepared so well for that fight. I was just mentally just off, and that happens. But as soon as I lost, I had my little cry party and in the back rooms with my family and team. And like I said, you cry it out for 10 minutes, and then you just accept it. It is what it is, and you go back to the drawing board and you say, all right, well, I was number one now, and I've now moved to number 10. I'm back there again. So you got to do that process again. Fight number 7 or fight number 8, and work your way back there again, or fight for another belt. But it's a long process. That process to get back to number 1 could take 2 years. So if you're mentally tough and this is what you really want in the sport, you'll push. But it's definitely different to every other sport. You can lose a soccer match, and the next week you're back there again and get a win, and you're straight back there. And the love's back from all the supporters. But boxing, it's a little bit different.
Yeah, and the individual nature as well, right? Like you can't, lean on your teammate. You got to have real personal drive. It's what I got a lot of respect for you guys that are in this sort of game. And what about on the other side, winning? Like I'd imagine with the amount of pressure there is with and after a loss and the consequences there, usually it's matched, right? Like winning must be just the same feeling, but the opposite. Like it must be incredible, right?
Winning's like, we put so much hours, and during training sessions and stuff like that, there's some sessions where, you're nearly on the verge of throwing up, or you actually just want to cry because you're like, man, I've just done 3 hours, my arms are burning. But, every day for that 12 weeks. But as soon as you win, like you don't even remember any of that, like the feeling. It's one of those things that I guess only fighters know. It's like, I always want to know what it feels like to run out of a fully sold out Marvel Stadium grand final. I guess I'll never get the opportunity to feel that as a player, but it's the same with boxing, that winning feeling and walking out to the ring. And there's nothing like it. It's honestly, like, the word to describe it would be more like electric. Like it's just, your whole body's just getting zapped and you're just G'ing up. It's the best feeling in the world. But again, overnight success, and it can be, a loss can defer you straight back to where you were.
I reckon, like, so we won the grand final in 2018. I reckon the moment the siren went would probably equate to what you're talking about. It's like very difficult to describe. It's almost out of body, and it's, like it's like numbing, almost like it's I can't even describe it. It's like you
Yeah.
can't even hear. Yeah.
2 hours you were running around, that you don't even remember the hard work you've just put in for that 2 hours before the siren went. The siren's going, like, oh yes, like it's just you could play again. The feeling that you'll get is like I could play another game. I could play another 4 quarters, but I don't need to because we've won. But in hindsight, it's just that electric feeling that's going through your body, that mindset, that adrenaline pump. It's the same feeling.
What about rivalries then, mate? Because again, I know I keep referring to other sports, but I think it's like better, people can understand it a bit more. So Collingwood and Carlton, they're big rivals, but there's not the personal nature, I don't think, that it is for you because you're an individual. So how do you handle rivalries? Like you've got some internationally and some in Australia as well. Talk to me about those.
Yeah, look, I've had a few rivals, and I mean, the production team, like Fox Sports stuff, like I've always got to play the villain and the bad guy, and I kind of took over that Anthony Mundine role. I mean, no one did it as good as him. He was the absolute superstar at doing that. But I'm the, I guess, the wish version of Anthony Mundine. And, but Fox Sports say, I'm quick-witted. I've got that, that fire in me as well. And I can back it up, obviously, with my record and my ability. But you need it in our sport, I guess. If you've got 2 guys about to fight in a main event fight for a title or an elevating fight, and you've got them both sitting there saying good luck and I wish you all the best, and I've trained hard, and it's boring. No one really tunes in, So like I've had big rivals with Tim Zhu. Me and him just generally don't get along. We're both number 1 in our in our country, and we're both top 10 in the world. He believes he wins against me, and I believe I beat him. But the only one way to settle that is obviously fighting. And we've been pushing this fight now for about 4 years, and it's just building to a huge. It's the new Mundine Green. So I feel like in our sport, you need them. Sometimes it can be a little bit of like I had one with Horn as well, but obviously off camera we were mates. But some can be real, and I think me and Tim are pretty real. We just don't get along. It's more just a personality clash. I don't hate him or he's done nothing to me personally, but we just generally don't get along. Like he wants to go left, I want to go right. We just don't see eye to eye.
Yeah, but the difference is like a footy match, you kick a few goals against the other team, and you're like, yeah, we win, but you blokes actually get to, ideally you get to punch it out. So there's a little
bit. Yeah.
So,
100%.
I
mean, you settle it once the fight's done, like even, once this fight, because me and Tim will eventually happen, and I believe I beat him, but however it goes, you kind of, you shake hands, you hug it out, and it's kind of left in the ring, if that makes sense. Whether you win or you lose with anybody, I feel like, it's one of those sports where you end up earning that respect and love from your opponent, either or,
So given that rivalry is real, like why is that? Other than you're both very good boxers in your own right and you're both from the same country, why is the rivalry there? Excuse my ignorance. No,
like it's just generally a personality clash. Like for me, I'm very, I don't know the word, like I'm out there, I'll say how I'm feeling, where he's very awkward. He's very, 1 minute you're in his presence and he'll try to be nice, and then the next day he's saying he wants to punch on in a car park on the camera on Fox Sports, and then he's just very, I don't know, it just comes down to pure, just like I would not hang out with him outside of a boxing venue. If we're not punching on, I don't know how and what he does on his weekends, but I know I would not be a part of it.
Okay. Oh, it sounds like it's a fight I'd watch. So hopefully that gets done. Do we know, like, is that, if you've been working on it for 4 years, is that something that can happen soon, or is that in the distance?
Yeah, look, it's definitely not that far away. I mean, even on Wednesday, I was there with Fox Sports, and everyone was, talking about the Zerafa Zoo fight. It's the biggest fight in Australia to be, I think, ever made. But I mean, it's just building. The more we're in front of each other, the more we, the hype gets building up, and the more abuse we give one another, it just builds up for a bigger fight. But again, I've got my plan. He's got his plan. The real winner will be Australian boxing if that fight and when that fight takes place.
All right, good. I'm going to stay tuned. Your next fight is August 20 planned. We know who you're fighting against there?
So I got an international opponent. I got a huge announcement November, December for another fight. So this fight is a title defense for my belt that I won in March at WBO. I've got an international opponent. There's 2 at the moment, one from France, one from Germany that we're potentially, looking at. Both undefeated and both can punch. So they're going to come down and obviously try to take what they think's theirs in my belt. But, we're training so hard for this fight, and we want to make a statement going into that November to December fight.
So you got a fight in August and a another fight later in the year as well. Tim's fighting this weekend or close enough to it.
He's fighting on the 16th or 19th of next month. He's fighting the rematch in Fundura, which he lost against last year. Was it last year? Yeah, last year.
What's it like having to speak about all this stuff? Because I know you're starting to do a bit of media work. How do you enjoy that? I guess analysing other fighters, but speaking about yourself more and doing that's come naturally.
Yeah, look, I love it. I enjoy being in front of a camera and getting the opportunity to speak my mind. But the commentary is a little hard because I get confused on when I shouldn't speak. I was there the other night and it was about 30, 40 seconds went by and I was just watching the fight because it was such a good fight. I was so tuned in on it. And then, in my earpiece, he's like, Mick, you want to start maybe saying some stuff, And I was like, oh, shit, I forgot. But other than that, I love it. I love being out there. I love getting around people. And it's good to kind of be, because normally, obviously, when I'm in the venue, I'm usually getting ready and fighting. So it's a different kind of atmosphere. I can go there and still be seen and heard and not have to stress. Well, not stress, but you know what I mean? Prepare and focusly switch on for a fight night.
So, mate, and we're just chatting now. You seem positive, in a good headspace, going well. You're focused. You've had different moments through your career that hasn't been the case. So, right, like just doing a bit of research for our chat, you've had moments around, different threats being made, and mental stuff, which I think you've been pretty open with, and other moments where you've seen how brutal boxing can be as well. Can you touch on a few of those and the mental side of what you're doing?
Yeah, look, it's so hard in our sport. It's the only sport that doesn't have like an organization, like someone that's kind of backing the sport or someone that's kind of looking after the fighters. So there's a lot of snakes in the sport, a lot of guys that, act like your friend and aren't, because of the money that, some of us are earning. Everyone wants to be putting their hand in and trying to get a bit of cash their way. And I fell into a contract, that sadly it expired and they tried to, hold on to that, and which ended up going to, court and other things. But and it was just taxating on the brain, because obviously I'm trying to train and whatnot, and I got this other stuff in the background, and it was a real headache. But again, a bad day lasts 24 hours, and I knew eventually it was going to pass. But in that time, with the pressure of trying to be a full-time fighter and trying to deal with that and trying to run a business and be a part, a fiance as well, and try to do everything else, it was hard. But I mean, like everyone goes through their little storms and whatnot. But it was tough,
How do you deal with that tough stuff? Like, are you an internal guy, or you reach out to people and speak to people that are supporting you?
I've got a very small circle. I've realised in the journey to keep my circle very small. But when I go through stuff, it's kind of weird. I'm a weird dude, man. Like I kind of like to go through the struggle. When things are tough, I'll keep it to myself, but I want to kind of be alone, and I feel like I get the best out of myself when I'm going through a struggle. Like, for example, if I had no money, that struggle would make me, a better person. It would make me hunt and do the things I got to do to get that money. I'm lucky now that obviously financially I'm, in a very good spot and stuff like that through my sport. But I always like to go through hardship. Like I don't change. I don't try to be a different person because I'm this athlete or this fighter or whatever it may be. I just, I stay who I am.
What about the dangers of boxing, mate? It's a physical sport, clearly. Does the head knock and physical dangerous nature come into your mind? I know you've seen different things up close and personal about how dangerous the sport can be. How do you feel about all of that?
Look, I try not to think about it, to be quite honest with you. I mean, I've had broken hands, I've had over 100 stitches in my face, and broken nose and whatever. But I try not to think about it too much. Like I go in there and it's the least of my worries, believe it or not. Like people say to me, "What happens if you get cut?" I'm like, I don't really care. It's I'll deal with it when it happens. That's one of those ones where if you kind of put it in your head, like, oh, what happens if this happens, or if my brain or this and that, it kind of just drains you a little bit. So for me, I just if touch wood, hopefully it doesn't, but if and when it happens, that's kind of when I think about it. I mean, that's probably the dumbest thing to do because you probably want to be thinking about it before anything happens. But yeah, I don't know. It's kind of like footy, I guess. Like it's like, well, what do you do if you break a leg or do a Nathan Brown or something? Like you know, you don't really think about it. You know what I mean? It's kind of just like, well, if it happens, it's happened. I mean, I don't try to preempt going on.
You know, you signed up for it, right? Like I'm like that
Well,
with
yeah,
footy. Like that's
right, yeah.
you've signed up for it, right?
I know, like I'm going to get cuts. I'm going to get knocked down. I'm going to get beaten. I'm going to win. I'm going to, like that's just all a part of the sport. I mean, and the quicker you realize that and you understand that these are, hurdles in the way. I mean, I guess it's just a lot easier.
What about what's sort of like your memory of your, not best fight, but what's your biggest moment in the ring so far? Like what do you look back on and go, geez, that was good, and that's what I want to get back to, and what is it?
I mean, I've had a few massive moments in my career, but the one that stands out the most was beating Jeff Horn. And it wasn't, I knew I was going to beat Jeff Horn. I said it in the media, I said it in the preference. I said the biggest mistake he made was sign that contract. But why it's so like touching and meaningful to me is because everyone was against me. Like he's just beaten Manny Pacquiao. He's this world champion. He's everything. And then he's picked me as the next opponent. And, everyone's like, what the hell? Like, Zerafa, you're going to get smashed. We're talking about a guy that just beat Manny Pacquiao, you know what I mean? 8-time world champion or 9-time world champion. I was like, man, I believe in myself. I know I can beat Jeff Horn stylistically. I know style, I know he's tough and I know what he's done and he's a great fighter and he's strong, but styles make fights. And I said, the biggest mistake he made was sign that contract. I said, I'm going to knock him out, and I manifested everything that happened that night. And every time there was a camera in front of me for that whole 12 weeks, I said, I'm going to knock him out. I'm going to knock him out. And I went out there and did exactly that. I went out there and knocked him out, and I took 3 belts off him, and I was top 3 in the world. And yeah, my life changed.
What was that moment like when you knocked him
out? That moment, man, I don't even know how to describe it. I'm getting my hands and my arms are standing up. I was on the ropes. I remember just scanning the arena, and it was just dead quiet. Like everyone was just like, what has just happened? And I could hear because I was right near the corner where the commentators were, and they were screaming like, Zerafa, he's done it. I was geeing up, and I grabbed all the belts. And then when I grabbed the microphone, I said, I'm like, why are you all surprised? I called this 12 weeks ago. It's Zerafa's time. And for me, that moment was it was huge. It was a game changer, and it was, we had T-shirts made that had 27 years in the making, and on the back it said, "I told you," and we had them out, and yeah, it was the best feeling in the world, bro. To be honest,
love it. I love it. I love the stories that get the goosebumps going. Well done. What about walkout songs? Just shift tunes a little bit. Do you put any time into that, or is that something?
Yeah. I had Hall of Fame. It's actually funny. My last fight, so I normally have Hall of Fame by the script. For me, I don't know. It's just a real touching song. But obviously with the Lara fight, because mentally I was off that night. I kind of, every time I hear it now, it brings me back to that fight.
Yeah.
So I said to my team, I said, you know what? And I had that fight for maybe 20 fights. So it was my regular song. And then I said, you know what? I'm going to change it. I want to put All of the Lights by, is it Jay-Z?
Yep.
And Rihanna?
Yep.
Yeah. And it's got a little interlude bit at the start with the violin. And I walked out to that. And because it was a different song, as I was walking out with all the cameras and stuff, they knock on your door and they say, look, you're on in 5 minutes or you're on in 3 minutes. I was like, yeah, sweet, I'm G'd up, ready to go. And then I could hear the music, but because it was a different song, as soon as I heard the violin bit, I had to wait for a minute, which probably was the worst thing ever because it gave me a minute to think, which normally I don't. I hear my Hall of Fame song usually and I just go out there and just do my thing. But I had to change my whole walkout, and it kind of gave me time to think. And I was like, oh, shit, I'm a little bit off. But as soon as I got past that, I was like, well, I'm back where I am, thank God. It's good, and I've worked it all out now. I've actually practiced it in the gym, putting the song on and doing my walkout and whatnot, just so it doesn't happen again. But yeah, I mean, a walkout song I feel like is very important. You got to go with what mentally flicks that switch.
Yeah, well, and athletes are routine animals. Like you said, you lose that routine, and it's like, oh, what's going on now? Even the slightest 1% off mentally equates to probably a 20% performance drop off. So I think
yeah.
people would hear that you're practicing in the gym. They're like, what the fuck's this guy doing? But
Yeah.
what you're doing is giving yourself a routine. So when it happens on game day, this is just normal, right?
100%. Well, that's what I mean. Even when I had the Hall of Fame song, like every time I walked out, it was the same part of the song would be the same routine I did. You know, when it hit to like a minute 20, I would do the thing I always do at that moment. And when I hear that part of the song in the verse, I'd be doing something different. And because it was a different song, I was like, you know, I had to kind of adapt. But I didn't really adapt prior to that because I didn't think about it until it was fight night. And that's when I kind of was like, oh, shit, this is different. And then obviously, yeah, routine for me is a huge thing. And now I've mastered it.
Yeah, it's good, mate. Great insight. Yeah, I know you've got your next fight in August, another one at the end of the year. But what's the pathway, mate? Like, what do you want to do over the next 18 months, or is that too far ahead? Are you just next one fight at a time?
Not too far. I mean, I know what I want, but I mean, obviously, there's the fights, the August fight. If I win the August fight, I'll be top 5 in the world again. And then November, December. Sadly, I can't say who or where, but it is huge, and that'll be for a world title set up for that. So I'm excited. Like I said, the next 12 months for me is huge. I got big contracts in place with No Limit and Fox Sports and KO. So I'm excited. Like I said, I'm ready to go out there and make a statement. I think I'm going to shock the world. I think yet again.
Any messages for anyone before we clock off here today? Because we can clip it up for socials and get some global coverage on it. You want to send any messages to anyone in particular?
Look, they know who they are. They've made a big mistake. I'm about to crash their little tea party, and I'm about to take that O.
All right, I like it. Mate, it's been brilliant chatting to you. Felt like we had a good chat in Melbourne last time I was there, and it's good to catch up with you again. Going to follow what you're doing and be rooting from you over here in Perth, mate. And if you ever get over here, you're going to come over. Maybe not for a beer. You'll probably be too fit for me, mate, but we'll catch up anyway.
You're a legend, brother. I appreciate it, man. You're doing great things for the sports and everything you're doing, man. I appreciate it.
Good, man. Thanks, Michael.
Take care, brother. Enjoy.